If you or someone you know has diabetes, you may have built up an extra supply of test strips and lancets. That's where we come in. We'll buy the supplies that you don't need and resell them to those in need to prevent waste. Help us make diabetes management more affordable. Visit us at teststripswithaz.com.
All right, joining me on the program, the number 11 ranked bantamweight in the UFC. It has been a minute since I've had the chance to talk with Cody Stamann, and he's here. He's right there on the screen. How are you, man?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, big news. You're on UFC 235 with Jon Jones, with Anthony Smith, with Tyron Woodley, with Kamaru Usman. And that is a loaded up card, especially when you compare it to the one coming up at UFC 234. Talk about it, man. Alejandro Perez, you've been waiting to get on that. You've been waiting to get a fight. You know, how did this all come together?
So, I mean, I've pretty much said yes to just about every single guy in the entire roster. When Cruz got hurt, I said yes to John Lineker. I was an alternate for Jimmie Rivera. Sterling took that fight. So, I mean, I've been asking for killers. I've been literally asking for murders row because I'm trying to get this Sterling loss and put it on the back burner. And I feel like if I go beat a top 5 guy, which I know that I'm capable of doing, that kind of erases that. So I've been saying yes and saying yes and saying yes. And it just so happened that Alejandro Perez's opponent was injured. I got a call, last week about that fight, and here we are. I didn't even hesitate. I mean, my manager was like, "You want to fight?" I was like, "Yeah, I want to fight him." And then then I announced it to I told my coaches and stuff, and they were thrilled. They were thrilled too. Like they, obviously everybody in the UFC and everyone in the top 15, they're all tough, but I've been I've been going after the biggest names in the show, so. Perez isn't quite as bad as some of the dudes I've been looking for.
I remember, it's funny you mentioned Rivera because I remember talking to you at the beginning of last year. We talked about the situation that you just mentioned with Rivera, Cruz, and Lineker and all of that craziness. And I know your name had come up as an option in that fight. And oddly enough, I talked to Rivera last week, and he had mentioned that your name had come up, and he had asked for that fight, and then he ended up with Aljamain Sterling. So, like you said, it was brought to your attention. Why were you told that fight didn't happen? Were you just kind of a backup if Sterling said no? Like, what was the story there?
So, yeah, I mean, I think that was the UFC's plan. I mean, in my head, I was beating Aljamain Sterling, and then I was going after Jimmie Rivera. That's what I told my manager. That's what I told my manager to tell the UFC. And I think that's kind of the plan. And when Jimmy and I saw each other in Texas on that when he fought Dodson and I fought Sterling, there was like a weird tension. Like we knew that we were next, like we were going to line up next. Well, the only problem was I went and shit the bed, and I lost Aljamain. And so obviously that threw everything off. But in my head, I was like, if I had that fight, 9 times out of 10 I win. 9 times, and if I could do that fight over, I mean, I think I still win 9 times out of 10. I think it was just a poor mistake. A couple mistakes I made after my weight cut that I think really, really affected my performance. Things that are easy fix. And moving forward, I don't think the Sterling fight did anything but make me realize that even on a bad day I can go out and perform and do well against an elite level guy like Aljamain Sterling. And I was ready to, go after Jimmie because, Jimmie's ranked higher, and that would just kind of, negate the loss that I had.
You talk about how you made a mistake with the weight cut and it kind of threw you off your game a little bit physically heading into that fight. Outside of just that and kind of learning that lesson for the next fight and for the future fights, was there anything else you took away from that fight? Because, obviously I talked to you right before that. That was a fight you really wanted. It was a big name for you, and the night just didn't go your way. So besides, what happened with the weight cut, what were some of the things that you learned from that night that you could take with you in the future?
It sticks to a game plan. I had a really specific game plan. I had a really, my coaches and I, we worked on a specific game plan to go out and beat Aljamain Sterling. And in the first round, I was executing it. I was going to back him up, stuff his takedowns. I was going to stay on top of him, just pressure. Being in that second round, I walked out and I put my foot right in his mouth, and I got cocky. I kind of got in my feelings a little bit, and I didn't do what I was trained to do. After that point, I was kind of, fighting how I would fight anybody else. And, really that hurt me. And that was a hard lesson, but that's the name of the game. I kind of popped into the UFC really, really fast, within 8 months, I was in the top 10, and within a year I was fighting, number 8 or 7 ranked Aljamain Sterling. So, that I probably should have, slowed my roll a little bit, but, that I didn't do anything but learn from that fight. And, the little mistakes that I made, it's not like I need to go back to the drawing board and learn how to fight all over again. There's small mistakes, small things that I did wrong. And, Sterling's a weird dude, and he hit me with some weird shit, and, here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the path that you took, because, you make your debut, you have that performance. It was pretty quick notice to have that fight. And then you get Duquesnoy, and then you get Brian Caraway, and then you get Aljamain Sterling. So, like you said, you really shot up very quickly. In a way, like you got some big opportunities, you got some big fight. Obviously, the Duquesnoy win was huge for you. There were still some questions about the Caraway win. I scored it for you, and a lot of other people scored it for you as well. But in a way, hindsight being what it is, do you kind of wish you took a slower path to get to this point, or you wouldn't change a thing at this point? The submission looked pretty nasty. People were very concerned after the fight was over, and I know you had gone on social media a few weeks after and talked about it. There's no serious injury, right? What exactly happened, and what exactly did that feel like for you? you get Alejandro Perez, and he's a ranked guy. He's in the top 15, so it's not like a big step back for you at all. I think he's number 12 and you're number 11, so it actually kind of works out as a fight that could have been booked to begin with. So, at this point, considering the state of the 135-pound division, I mean, Dillashaw drops to 125, loses to Cejudo. Moraes had that big win over Sunso on Saturday in Fortaleza, and all signs point to Cejudo getting the next shot 135-pound title anyways. So the division's kind of in a standstill, stagnant state right now. So, so if it wasn't Perez, would it even have mattered at this point, like, who the UFC presented to you? Or, did you want to, like, at least stick in the top 15? Or, I mean, what was your thought process before you got the call?
I mean, I wanted to stay in the top 15. I didn't want to fight an unranked guy unless it was somebody, that really, posed that top 15 threat. I wanted to fight someone tough. Just mentally more than anything. I really want to just go out there and prove to myself and to everyone that, I belong where I am, and that, I am one of the best guys in the world. And I felt like if I'd have went out and fought, some guy that no one heard of, everyone would have been like, well, yeah, you were supposed to beat that guy. You're still shit because Aljamain Sterling beat you this, and this. And I've always kind of had that chip on my shoulder, and I think that's kind of what's made me more successful as an athlete, is that I've always kind of like, I always feel like I have something to prove to people. Maybe because I'm not from a huge gym and because I don't have the accolades that some other guys do. I feel like I have to prove that. And Alejandro Perez is a guy that I can prove that against. He's 6-1-1 in the UFC. He's tough. He's beat some good guys. And, it's going to be a hell of a fight, and I'm going to beat the living shit out of him.
Is there, I mean, when you look at him and what he's done, obviously his record's pretty impressive. When you look at the matchup stylistically, what sort of challenges does he bring your way? I mean, at this point, what you've taken away from the Sterling fight and what you brought back home and brought back to the gym to prepare for whoever you're going to fight, what kind of challenges does he kind of throw your way, do you think?
The Caraway was a guy that, like, literally, like, he has got a really good left hook. He hits a lot of guys with it, and it's really weird because it's not, like, super powerful or fast. It's just, I don't know how he does it. He's a weird guy. He shoots a lot. It's hard to make a good fight against a guy like that. Duquesnoy's another guy. I didn't really start fighting Duquesnoy until the second round, until I realized, like, okay, this kid isn't as bad as everyone said he was. You know what I mean? Everyone talked about how good he was and how he was, like, the next big thing in MMA. It kind of got in my head a little bit. I was like, wow, he's really that good. And after that first round, I'm like, dude, I can beat this guy. What the fuck? What am I waiting for? And after that, I kind of started opening up. And then, Sterling's a really weird guy, too. He's a hard guy to hit. He backs up a lot, backs up really fast, hits a lot of weird angles. So he's a hard guy to make a good fight against. But Alejandro Perez, now, he's an orthodox guy. He's the same height as me. He doesn't really do anything crazy fancy. He's like a guy that I've seen a million times in fights before and in the gym. He's obviously he's really good. He's fast. There's things that he does well, but that is like the ideal matchup for me. I feel like a guy my size that's orthodox. I fucking hate fighting southpaws. So he's an orthodox guy. That same height, doesn't have a 90-inch reach like Tyrion Ware. He's not a guy that's going to shoot on me the whole time. Like, when his name came up, I was like looking at this guy, thanking God, because he's the perfect guy for me to fight next.
Being on this card, I mean, we talked about how loaded it is. Did the UFC make any point in letting you know where you're going to be on the card? Like, main card, probably not, I would assume, but are you going to be on ESPN? Are you going to be on Fight Pass?
I think I'll be on ESPN. I'll be on ESPN, yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I mean, this is obviously the relationship between the UFC and ESPN, I think, like, legitimize the sport even more so. You know what I mean? Like, I feel the same way. So what is that going to mean to fight on ESPN? Sport.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Literally, I told my dad that earlier. I was like, Dad, he's like, well, you're probably going to be on the main card. Same thing you said. A lot of big names on that card. I said, yeah. I said, but I think I'll probably be on the ESPN based on the promotional agreement that I signed. I think I'm fighting on the ESPN portion. And he goes, holy shit, man, that's ESPN. That's crazy. And I headlined the Fox card, but it's ESPN. It's different. I don't know. Like, Fox is cool, but man, ESPN is like, that's sports. Like, that's the biggest name in sports. So for me, like, to fight on ESPN, like, if you'd have told, like, when I was a dumb little kid and decided I wanted to be a fighter 10 years ago, yeah, you're going to be fighting on ESPN, I don't even know if I would have believed myself.
Your first UFC fight, it was super short notice, and then you had some guys. 5 days. Your other fights, like, you had a name, you had a date, you knew when it was going to happen. This one's a little bit shorter. You've experienced both. What do you prefer? Do you prefer the long camps, have it drawn out a little bit more, or do you prefer kind of the get right to work, get ready, 3-4 weeks, boom, kind of, you don't have to think about it too much?
So when I fought Tyrion Ware, I literally hadn't trained. I hadn't been in the gym in 2 months. Like, I literally came off the couch and fought him. I had a knee sprain, and I couldn't train. I literally just finished physical therapy and got, like, cleared to go start training, and then I got that phone call. So that was weird, and that kind of made me realize, like, off the couch, I can, manage to, like, make shit happen and go fight, an elite level guy. And then Brian Caraway, I actually broke 2 ribs about 5 weeks from that fight. So I was literally riding a bike, for like 4 weeks of that training camp, and my ribs were just to the point where I could, like, drill when I got in the cage and fought Caraway. So for me, like, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, however much time, like, ever since I fought Aljamain Sterling, I've been in the gym twice a day, every single day. I take 1 day off a week, but outside of that, I've been training my butt off. And like I said, I was prepared to fight John Lineker in January. So I was waiting for that phone call. If they would have called me about a fight, and next weekend, if I had to fly out to frickin' wherever that fight is, somewhere in Australia, I probably would be getting on a plane right now. I'd be ready to go. So, I don't really care when it was. Like, I was planning on fighting in March anyway, so I've pretty much been in fight camp for 2 months now. So, if anything, I need to chill out, maybe not train as much.
I got to ask you about this because you're over in Michigan, and I know you're a Michigan top team, and I know Jared Brooks is a guy you've trained with, you're pretty close with from what I saw on social media. And one of my favorite things on the internet right now is the rap battles between him and Kelleher, Scoggins. Jared's taking shots at Tyre Woodley's music, and I remember the first time I interviewed Jared was right after he got signed to the UFC. He was going to fight Ian McCall, and, that fight never came to fruition, but he came on, he was on fire, and he talked about his rap thing, and I'm like, drop a freestyle, and he dropped freestyle, and it was all good. So, have you been seeing these videos on Twitter between Jared and Brian? And if so, like, you gotta be loving this stuff.
I did watch a video of Jared rapping. I love Jared, man. He's such a cool kid. I don't know what to say about the rap videos, though. I was watching them last night, and then I stopped watching them, and I'm like, I can't watch this. Like, you guys just leave the rapping to the rappers. Like, you guys are fighters, knock it off.
It's turned into the one bite pizza review for me. Like, I got sucked into those videos real quick, and now all of a sudden, like, the rap's going back and forth, and I'm like, I can't wait for the next one to drop. But
yeah, right.
You've probably been hearing Jared rap forever, though, right?
He does. Every now and then he gets a little freestyle at the gym. Like I said, he's a cool kid, man. He's fun to be around. He's always, like, hyper and just always in a really, really good mood. So, yeah, I like Jared, man. He can rap all he wants.
There you go. He's got a fight coming up, too, in Michigan, I believe, next month, right around when you're going to be fighting Perez. So, Cody Stamann, back in action, everybody. He's going to be taking on Alejandro Perez, UFC 235. It's going to be on ESPN as it looks right now. Thanks for jumping on, man. This interview kind of went in a different direction, but I'm happy that you finally got a fight. We're going to see you back in the octagon coming up in just a few weeks from right now. So before you get out of here, once again, let the folks know where to find and follow you on the web, social media, sponsors, shout-outs, anything else you want to get off your chest. Go right ahead, man.
Yeah, everything is just Cody Stamann, C-O-D-Y. God damn, can I even spell my name? CODYSTAMANN. Wow. Yeah, I got to thank my management at Iridium Sports, all my coaches and all my guys at Michigan Top Team for always taking really good care of me. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited to get back in there, man. I've been itching. I've been bugging my manager. I've been bugging Sean Shelley. I've been bugging everybody. All that squeaky wheel shit, it works out. And I'm be fighting soon. I'm ready to get back in there.
I mean, I could see it in your face when it connected. You looked like a weight was off your shoulder and a small chip was growing in its place. So I feel like that's where you are right now. And I could tell right away that there was some good news. So, and there certainly is. So we're looking forward to that, man. Thanks for the time as always. And best of luck to you. All the best heading into Vegas in a few weeks.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.